Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis got even more bad news. And the news in and of itself is interesting, but his response to it was even more interesting. And it betrays such a lack of awareness as to why he's experiencing the troubles that he is, or at least in part why. So the news is that the CEO of Citadel, Ken Griffin, gave an interview to CNBC, and he was a huge supporter of the 2022 re-election bid for governor of Florida of Ron DeSantis, gave $5 million to a PAC supporting Ron DeSantis, and then has indicated in this interview he's not all in on DeSantis for the presidential run, and had this to say. Let's see, as media is pointing out some quotes. Quote, "I'm still on the sidelines as to who to support in this election cycle. Look, if I had my dream, we'd have a great Republican candidate in the primary who is younger, of a different generation, with a different tone for America. And we have a younger person on the Democratic side in the primary." What are you talking about? We got a young Joe Biden who would have his message for our country. We'd have a debate around ideas and principles and policies to make this a great nation. We're not having that dialogue right now. He did note that he thinks that DeSantis' performance as governor was phenomenal for some reason. And then he says about his presidential run, I don't know his strategy, and talked about specifically DeSantis' legal war with Disney over the alleged punitive actions he has taken against the company for criticizing him. Quote, "The ongoing battle with Disney, I think, is pointless. It doesn't reflect well on the ethos of Florida. It's not clear to me what voter base he's intending to appeal to." So confused, and he said he's going to be on the sidelines, at least as of now, for the Republican presidential primary with his dollars. And so then DeSantis got asked about this, and here was that.
The billionaire GOP donor, Ken Griffin, he says he's sitting on the sidelines for this Republican primary. He's been one of your principal backers. Have you talked to him? Have you tried to talk him out of sitting on the sidelines?
No, I mean, I think there was a report said he didn't like that that we had stood up against Disney. But I can tell you, Stuart, I have 6, 5, and 3-year-old kids at home. The idea that we are going to allow a company to come in and try to wreak havoc on our education system, injecting transgender ideology in elementary school, negating parents' rights, that is non-negotiable for me. We will stand up for our kids. We will stand up for our parents. And yes, they're the granddaddy of them all when it comes to Florida politics. But I'm happy to stand in the way of that and push back. If we can't get the education right, if we can't agree as a society that it's wrong to tell a second grader that they can change genders, then this country is just not going to succeed. So I see.
By the way, just a quick note. He has now extended the ban on discussion on instruction about gender related things and sexual orientation, stuff like that, all the way through 12th grade.
See our country in decline on a variety of fronts, including in education. We've reversed that decline in Florida. And yes, we've had to stand up to Disney to do it, but that was the right thing to do, and I stand by it 100%.
So what did you hear there? You heard, "I'm fighting back against woke, just different wording." And he responded to a criticism about a bizarre strategy of obsessing over things like that, and the battle with Disney, by obsessing over things like that and the battle with Disney. And separate from plenty of previous extensive conversations we've had about why DeSantis is wrong on the policy of these different things, as it pertains to the Don't Say Gay bill and stuff like that, but even just the principle of him lashing out at, in his authority as governor, a company for their freedom of speech, for them voicing their opposition to the Don't Say Gay bill, is absurd and wild. And the small government Republican Party should not be for that. Neither of the parties should be for it, and the Democrats aren't. But it is truly such a horrible way to go about governing, where a company does something you don't like, so that's when you choose to try to punish them. Even if you think that they don't need the special district and all that as it relates to Disney, he only took those actions in response to Disney saying, "Hey, we think it's weird that you're trying to remove all this stuff from your educational standards in Florida, and we're not for that. And then he started lashing out at them. And it's apparently not working for him. And he doesn't get it. I mean, look at the polls. At one point, he was essentially tied, nearly tied from 538, the average of polls. And he was at 40-ish%, and Trump was also at 40-ish% in the Republican presidential primary polls. Now, pretty much a consistent drop with some little moments of increases down to 14%. Ooh. So maybe, even though he's backed off a little of the obsession with the particular word, woke ideology, and his battle against this boogeyman, he still is running just a campaign. And so while I'm not pretending that him running a campaign that I would like to see would win him Republican primary voters, obviously not. Mostly this has to do with the coalescing around Trump and more of a Trump thing. But at least, for whatever reason, DeSantis is not being successful, which is fascinating and a little bit fun to see. Even though, as I always say, it's not going to be great to see the alternative, Donald Trump. It's just, what do you do? Who do you root for in a situation like this? Can they all just lose? Oh, they can. Joe Biden can win. There we go. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show and get a bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.